From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
For the arms traffickers, it's a business to sell arms to criminals. And we need to mobilize not just public opinion against this, but unite with international public opinion to show the irresponsibility of the Americans, as much as it bothers them or hinders their political campaigns.
Thousands of U.S. guns in Mexico and the United States, linked to a once-secret U.S. program, Operation Fast and Furious, have led to the resignation of the head of the Bureau of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We'll speak with one of the agents who blew the whistle. Then, a White House Bioethics Commission has revealed gruesome new details about American-run venereal disease experiments on unsuspecting Guatemalans in the 1940s.
We couldn't do this in the United States. And that's just a stunning, absolutely stunning acknowledgement of what was going on.
83 Guatemalans died as a result of the experiment. Over 5,000 were injured. We'll speak with one of the members of the White House Bioethics Commission, as well as a lawyer who represents some of the Guatemalan families. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Airlifts and emergency workers continue to reach hundreds of residents stranded in flooded areas in the wake of Hurricane Irene. In Vermont, the National Guard delivered supplies to 13 towns cut off by floodwater and damaged roads since Sunday. Most of the towns remain without electricity and potable water. Meanwhile, thousands of people were evacuated in New Jersey and Connecticut Tuesday as floodwaters continued to rise. North Carolina says the storm destroyed at least 1,100 homes and caused more than $71 million in damage to its 7 hardest-hit counties. Overall, experts say Irene will prove to be one of the costliest disasters in U.S. history, with damages of up to $10 billion. There are growing concerns most affected residents will be left to cover the bill, as standard insurance plans generally cover damage caused by wind but not by flooding. A review by the Kinetic Analysis Corporation says insurers may end up covering less than 40% of the costs because of a lack of flood insurance and a sharp increase in deductibles in coastal areas. A new study says 25 of the nation's top 100 corporate executives earned more money last year than the amount their companies paid in taxes. According to the Institute for Policy Studies, the 25 companies averaged overall profits of $1.9 billion. They include Verizon, Bank of New York, Mellon, General Electric, Boeing, and eBay. 18 of the companies were found to be operating subsidiaries in countries identified as tax havens. The study also found the salary gap between corporate executives and workers has exploded in recent years, rising from a ratio of 263 to 1 in 2009 to 325 to 1 last year. The findings come just weeks after Congress approved the bipartisan debt deal that excluded any tax hikes on the nation's wealthiest individuals and corporations. The study's findings come as President Obama attempts to drum up support for his re-election campaign amidst a slumping economy. In an appearance on the Tom Joyner radio program Tuesday, Obama said the severity of the financial crisis had limited his administration's ability to respond.
When Dr. King gave the I Have a Dream speech, that was a march for jobs and justice, not just justice. And you know, in the last part of his life, you know, when he went down to Memphis, that was all about sanitation workers saying, I am a man, and looking for economic justice and dealing with poverty. And so it's not enough for us to just remember the sanitized versions of what Dr. King stood for. He made a real call for us to dig deep and be thinking about our fellow citizens and people around the world who are in desperate need and figuring out how we can help them.
Earlier in the interview, President Obama also commented on the unveiling of the new memorial to Dr. Martin Luther King on the National Mall. Obama cited Dr. King's work beyond civil rights to also seek economic justice.
Look, there are no magic bullets, because what we went through was the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, and typically after financial crises like this, it takes a long time for the patient to heal. This is a situation where the economy essentially had a heart attack, and the patient lived, and the patient's getting better, but it's getting better very slowly. So we don't have magic bullets, but what we do have, I think, is the capacity to do some things right now that would make a big difference.
The head of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives has been demoted in a shakeup over the controversial anti-gun trafficking program known as Fast and Furious. Kenneth Melson, acting director of the ATF, will become a senior advisor on forensic science at the Justice Department's headquarters in Washington. In addition to Melson's reassignment, Phoenix-based U.S. Attorney Dennis Burke has stepped down from the Justice Department. Both men were closely involved in the gun sting that saw U.S. agents encouraging the sale of thousands of guns to middlemen for Mexican drug cartels in an attempt to gain access to senior-level figures within Mexico's criminal organizations. The weapons were eventually linked to numerous crime scenes in the U.S. and Mexico, including the slaying of a U.S. Border Patrol agent. We'll have more on Operation Fast and Furious, speaking with a whistleblowing agent after headlines. Libyan rebels have given Muammar Gaddafi's forces a deadline of Saturday to lay down their arms or face intensified military action. The rebels' National Transitional Council has issued the ultimatum to loyalists holed up in Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. Rebel forces have surrounded the city in preparation for an assault. A top rebel leader, meanwhile, is claiming Saadi Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi's third son, is prepared to surrender. On Tuesday, a number of Gaddafi family members, including his second wife, were granted refuge in Algeria. A rebel commander, meanwhile, is claiming at least 50,000 Libyans have died in the nation's conflict this year. Colonel Hisham Bouhagiar said he had seen evidence of mass graves.
People say about 50,000.
50,000?
Yeah.
Was it possible?
Yes, from both sides, yeah.
Sorry?
From both sides,
From
yes.
both sides.
I saw in a picture a graveyard in Misrata with numbers that has 7,000 7,000 people who died, 7,000 graves. I think Misrata and Zlitan took the most toll. Maybe I would say around 15 to 17,000 in that area.
In other Libya news, Amnesty International is warning black Libyans and sub-Saharan Africans are at high risk of abuse from rebel forces seeking to target Gaddafi loyalists. At a camp for migrants near Tripoli, 2 African nationals said they fear for their lives.
If you enter to the streets, the Libyan people will hold you, then will say you are fighting for Gaddafi. And I'm not a fighter. That is why I keep myself here with my wife. No money to feed. Please, I need your help.
Some people are saying that there's a blacks who used to cooperate with the Libyan soldiers to shot them and whatever, but we are not among. We, Ghana, Nigeria, we're not among. We don't know nothing about that. Yeah, that's what we're running our life.
In Syria, forces loyal to President Bashar al-Assad have opened fire on thousands of pro-democracy protesters throughout the southern province of Daraa, killing at least 7 people, including a 13-year-old boy. Violence was also reported in the central city of Homs and in the capital of Damascus, following prayers marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The violence comes just one day after pro-Assad forces killed at least 8 people and wounded dozens in nationwide raids. Meanwhile, the U.S. Treasury Department has issued new sanctions against Syria's foreign minister and 2 other top officials. Civil disobedience actions continue outside the White House against the proposed Keystone XL pipeline that would carry oil from Canada's tar sands to the Gulf Coast. A number of protesters were arrested Tuesday, including the actor Daryl Hannah and Greenpeace USA Executive Director Phil Radford. Among the others to be arrested this week, Elijah Zarlin, who worked as a senior writer for President Obama's election campaign in 2008. Overall, the group Tar Sands Action says 595 people have been arrested since the protests began earlier this month. The protesters are urging President Obama to veto the pipeline. On Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said he and President Obama have not discussed the issue. For more interviews on these protests, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. The oil giant ExxonMobil has reached a deal to tap the Arctic in exchange for training Russia's state-owned oil company Rosneft on the controversial drilling practice known as hydraulic fracturing, or fracking. The deal centers around a $3.2 billion exploration program for the Kara Sea on the Arctic Ocean and the Black Sea, and an option for Rosneft to invest in Exxon drilling projects in the Gulf of Mexico and oil fields in Texas. Under the deal, Exxon will use its $41 billion purchase of the Fort Worth, Texas-based drilling company XTO Energy to share expertise on fracking technology to draw natural gas out of shale rock. Fracking has come under wide criticism for contaminating water supplies through the release of methane gas and other chemicals. A federal judge has ordered Kansas to resume payments to the local chapter of Planned Parenthood on the same terms as before it stripped the group of funding. Kansas had sought to pay Planned Parenthood monthly instead of quarterly and only for services provided. Planned Parenthood had warned the move would have harmed services and cut off access for low-income patients. Meanwhile, in Texas, a federal judge has blocked key provisions of a law that would require women seeking an abortion to view a sonogram and listen to the heartbeat of their fetus. In the ruling, U.S. District Judge Sam Sparks said, quote, "The act compels physicians to advance an ideological agenda with which they may not agree, regardless of any medical necessity and irrespective of whether the pregnant women wish to listen." Judge Sparks also blocked provisions that would have called for canceling a doctor's license or imposing a criminal penalty on physicians for failure to abide by the law. In Bolivia, 5 former military commanders have been convicted for a 2003 massacre that left at least 64 civilians dead and more than 400 wounded. The victims were killed as the military cracked down on protests that sparked an uprising against then-Bolivian President Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada. He has been indicted in the case but has not been tried because he's living safely in exile in the United States. And the whistleblower website WikiLeaks came under attack late Tuesday after reportedly releasing thousands of secret diplomatic cables containing the names of confidential sources and agents. The group tweeted, quote, "WikiLeaks.org is presently under attack," after the organization's website crashed. An hour later, the site and the cables posted there were inaccessible. Last week, the German paper Der Freitag reported potentially dangerous cables released by WikiLeaks have been floating around the Internet for months because of a rift between WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and his former trusted lieutenant Daniel Domscheit-Berg. The documents allegedly include the names of suspected agents in Israel, Jordan, Iran, and Afghanistan. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.